You know, when you reach for literally anything in a store, a bottle of water, a phone charger, maybe just a loaf of bread, it's there. It is almost always there. And you've probably never once walked into a supermarket and genuinely wondered if the shelves would just be totally bare. Honestly, that confidence is one of the most reliable, comforting feelings in modern life. Until one day, all at once, you reach out and there's absolutely nothing.
So here's the first thing that should completely unsettle you. When you take that water bottle off the shelf, there is no giant warehouse out back stacked floor to ceiling just waiting to replace it. In fact, there is no secret warehouse anywhere holding all of your stuff in reserve. Instead, there's a machine behind that shelf. It's a vast, invisible logistics network that moves almost everything you own across the entire planet, landing it within arm's reach at the exact second you want it. You've never seen it, and it's holding on by a thread so thin you'd probably never believe it. Okay, let's dive right into this invisible machine and look at how we used to do things compared to today. For most of human history, the rule of supply was super simple. Hold as much as you can. You stockpile. You keep a massive cushion. A full storeroom literally meant safety. But today, that water you grabbed wasn't sitting in storage for months. It arrived days ago, maybe even just hours ago. The modern world basically traded the safety of that traditional storeroom cushion for the incredible, blinding speed of a heavily optimized system, where parts arrived precisely minutes before they're actually needed. And here's what's truly wild about all this. Running the entire planet with almost no safety net, it wasn't a mistake. Actually, it wasn't an accident at all. We literally removed the backup on purpose. It was a brilliant efficiency measure designed to keep costs way down and speed up the entire global economy. But to understand how we ended up deliberately deleting our own backup, we kind of need to quickly look at the physical roots of this invisible machine. Before the 1950s, shipping was agonizingly slow. Workers were manually loading crates and barrels and bags. But then, a guy named Malcolm McLean had this incredibly simple but game-changing insight. He thought, instead of loading cargo piece by piece, let's just move standard-sized containers. This one innovation completely changed the game. It made it possible to move goods globally with unprecedented speed, lowering labor costs and drastically reducing theft. Today, over 90% of world trade moves efficiently by sea in these exact containers. But, having fast ships just wasn't enough. The real revolution? Well, that happened inside the factory. Right after World War II, Toyota was nearly broke. They simply couldn't afford giant American-style factories with mountains of parts just sitting around tying up all their capital. So, out of pure financial necessity, a Toyota engineer named Taiichi Ohno invented a revolutionary concept to completely eliminate waste. It's called just-in-time, or kanban. And the core realization here is absolutely fascinating. It's a pull-based philosophy where absolutely nothing moves and nothing is produced until something is consumed. Let's move to this next part and see exactly how this builds, because the process is beautifully simple. Step 1, a worker takes a part off the line. Step 2, a signal, a physical Kanban card, is sent back up the line. And step 3, exactly one replacement is made. The factory isn't pushing products onto the floor just hoping they'll be used. Instead, the worker's demand pulls the product right through the factory. Now, there's a famous legend out there that Taiichi Ohno got this brilliant idea by visiting an American supermarket and marveling at how shelves only refilled what shoppers actually took. But here's a fascinating, lesser-known twist for you that probably isn't true at all. No one can actually find a solid source for that trip, and Toyota's own corporate history shows they were already running this exact system inside their factories way back in 1954, well before that supposed inspiration trip even happened. That neat little origin story? It was likely built afterward to explain a messy but brilliant idea born entirely from necessity. Now, what's really interesting about this is why businesses today aggressively strip out all that inventory. To a modern business, inventory is just a massive liability. It costs a ton of money to store things. You're paying for warehouses, utilities, security. It ties up capital, meaning your money is just sitting still on a dusty shelf instead of being invested somewhere useful. Plus, products face obsolescence. Think about electronics or fashion. They go out of date so fast. Or spoilage, like food and medicine. By completely eliminating inventory, businesses are saving billions of dollars every single year. Just-in-time basically became the operating system of our global economy. But there's a catch. A system with absolutely zero backup cushion has a hidden and honestly terrifying flaw. It cannot absorb a shock. Engineers call this inherent fragility the bullwhip effect. It's this crazy phenomenon where a tiny fluctuation in consumer demand at one end creates increasingly violent, massive fluctuations further up the supply chain. It's exactly like flicking your wrist just a tiny bit, and that motion sends a massive cracking wave all the way to the tip of a whip. So, why exactly does this happen? Well, the mechanics are surprisingly human. It's caused by panic ordering, when businesses get terrified of a shortage. It's caused by forecast errors from incomplete data. It's batch ordering, where orders arrive in huge, clunky waves instead of continuously. And it's delayed information, where nobody really sees the full picture. The system simply cannot just brush off a disruption. Instead, it aggressively amplifies the chaos through poor visibility and sheer panic. And we all literally lived through this in early 2020 with the infamous toilet paper shortage. But here is the surprising truth about that. Humanity didn't suddenly use dramatically more toilet paper. As people stayed home from the office, actual consumer demand for residential toilet paper only shifted by an estimated super modest 20%. Just 20%. So the absolutely crucial point here is how that tiny wobble reacted inside the machine. Shoppers saw a half-empty shelf and panicked, buying 2 packs instead of 1. The store saw the shelf emptying fast and immediately doubled its order. The distributor tripled theirs. By the time that signal reached the very top of the chain, that tiny 20% nudge violently cracked the whip into a 700% explosive increase in factory orders. The shelves didn't empty because we literally ran out of paper. They emptied because the entire system panicked faster than it could refill. But okay, that was just a wobble, right? A crack of the whip from the inside. We have to ask a much, much scarier question. What happens when this incredibly tense, heavily optimized thread doesn't just wobble, but actually snaps in the physical world? Well, in March 2021, we found out exactly what that looks like. The Ever Given, a vessel literally as long as the Empire State Building is tall, turns sideways in the Suez Canal. This super narrow channel of water in Egypt is a massive choke point, handling roughly 12% of all global trade. And boom, suddenly it was completely blocked. Because the entire world operates on just-in-time, there were absolutely zero stockpiles to rely on. Hundreds of vessels backed up in the ocean. And the staggering scale of this blockage, it cost the global economy an estimated $400 million per hour. Every single hour that ship sat wedged in the sand, the planet lost nearly $10 billion a day. Zero cushion literally meant an immediate multi-billion-dollar daily paralysis. But as bad as the Suez Canal was, you could eventually just dig that ship out of the mud. Let's escalate to an even worse system failure. A micro choke point, the semiconductor shortage. When the pandemic hit, car makers, who run pure just-in-time models, assumed demand would crash, so they completely canceled their chip orders. Chip factories logically shifted to making chips for laptops and phones instead. But when car demand bounced back faster than expected, the car makers couldn't just reorder. You cannot instantly fix a missing chip, because semiconductor factories take massive investments and literally years to build from scratch. The result of this simple miscalculation was absolutely devastating. An estimated 11 million vehicles were never built. Manufacturers had finished cars sitting in huge fields, totally useless, just missing a single part the size of your thumbnail. This strict adherence to pure just-in-time manufacturing cost the auto industry an estimated $210 billion in lost revenue in a single year. No way around it. That's just mind-blowing. And look, this is just the stark reality of a complex global ecosystem built with single points of failure. Look at these critical choke points: the Suez Canal, the Panama Canal, the Strait of Malacca, Taiwan for advanced semiconductors, the Red Sea corridor. A disruption at any of these geographical or manufacturing bottlenecks halts commerce worldwide, simply because there is nowhere else for the system to easily pivot. Now, after hearing about the toilet paper, the ship, and the chips, the obvious conclusion is that the system is just completely broken. But here is the most unsettling twist of this entire explainer. It isn't broken at all. Empty shelves aren't a sign of a failing machine. It's working exactly as designed. The terrifying reality here is that we are living in a racing car economy that is functioning perfectly, optimized right to the very razor-thin edge of collapse. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate societal trade-off we've made. We have consistently chosen efficiency over resilience. Efficiency gives us the absolute lowest cost, the fastest flow, the least waste, and the smallest possible cushion. It's exactly why things are so incredibly cheap and accessible today. Resilience, on the other hand, That means higher prices, more inventory just sitting around, lower efficiency, but much, much better protection when things go wrong. Every single ounce of protection we remove to make your goods cheaper leaves us totally vulnerable to the next snapped thread. To put that into perspective and bring these abstract economic concepts back to a really chilling reality, look at this number: 5 days. That is exactly how close we constantly are to everything looking perfectly normal to suddenly facing entirely empty aisles. So the next time you walk into a store and casually pull a product off the shelf, just remember the incredible journey it took to meet your hand at that precise second. There was never a giant warehouse holding your life in reserve. There was only the thread, fast, cheap, and vibrating with tension. We didn't accidentally build a fragile world. We consciously chose it to get the conveniences we enjoy today. So I'll leave you with this final thought. The question isn't whether the system will face another shock. It absolutely will, for sure. The real question is, how much resilience are you actually willing to pay for? Would you trade cheap, instant convenience for higher prices, just for the security of knowing the shelf will always be full?